I'm going to use pencil today, but any kind of pencil could work. Pen should work just as well. I don't know, something more gestural about the pencil I'm interested in today. And that gesturalness is a bit of what we'll look at as the kind of technique of the drawing. And that could take on a lot of forms. Idea in a little scrap or in a warm-up, just to get a sense of it, is maybe holding the pencil in a little more paintbrusherly way, if it's comfortable. If not, any way that feels good is fine. One that allows you to move with broader strokes that are less controlled at first. Maybe move back into some control as we go along, and feeling free to move that around in your hand and have things move in various directions. Right now, getting a sense of what directions may work well for you relative to the page. If your page is mobile, you can always turn it to support the most flowing ones. If it's more stationary in front of you, then you might get a grain or directionality to what you're working with. And as a bit of a formal guide or idea, we'll have a little branching kind of leaf veining structure if you would like to follow that, but anything of the gestures could work. We could think of them as little people moving around, or just a series of abstract curves building off and around each other. And really what we'll focus on is kind of layers of motion, from the very broad to a little more discrete or specific. And since they'll just make a bit of a mess anyway, we'll let them start unfolding there. I have a little bit of a cold, so I'll spare you any sneezes, but I think I'm okay for right now. So on the larger page, taking a little bit of time just to move the arms and hands around that whole area with a gestural movement. You could go with left hand or right hand, on hand or off hand at any time. So just seeing how they reach out there in the space you have to work with, becoming familiar with it, making any adjustments to your sitting or standing position, making sure you're in a nice, comfortable place for a little while. As you feel ready, take a couple of deeper breaths to roll the spine back, shoulders settling in, the breath expanding the vertebrae, the rib cage, and then relaxing the core around it, supported but easy. A couple of those as you see fit and prepare to get into the drawing exercise. And we'll start with a primary vein or gesture, that first guiding motion on the page. We'll do multiple cycles through it and count them, a little bit of a breath counting, the first few just getting into it and seeing where we end up in our rhythm, but somewhere around 4 to start with. As you feel ready, all together, taking an inhalation and then exhaling a mark out onto the page. Somewhere, that first change of the empty paper, our starting place. We'll probably work through a series of these. The first one, slower, longer breaths, counting through that first time 1, as you're ready, breathing in, and tracking it a second time, a 2. It may track closely, it may drift far, either just starts to establish where the paper will go. Third time, breathing in and exhaling the gesture out with a 3. And finally a 4th time to this moment. Filling out some space and exhaling a 4 there onto the page. And so for a few of these, I'll guide with a counting a little bit quicker now that we have it established. And See where it takes us as we work our way down in levels of detail, a little branching. So somewhere along that curve, a new starting point, a new breath in, and exhaling of a new gesture out. 1, 2, 3, 4. And try to keep the count somewhere medium so all the breath can follow along, slow or fast. But we'll repeat that cycle a few times as you get to know it, and choosing along this first trajectory the branches, whether they're meeting each other, coming from the same point, or alternating, or just kind of randomly moving along, is up to you. Each time we're ready to begin a cycle, we'll take a breath in, find the place, and exhale out to 1. Refill the breath and exhale out 2. Reset the 3. And 1 closing breath for the 4. As I said, experimenting with sides and location, picking it, breathing in, and moving 1 out onto the page. The resetting breath. The marking 2. In 3. In 4. You might find a little hold at the top or a little rush to get into it. Just noticing that. Breathing in to establish and exhaling with 1 mark. Breathing in to reset and exhaling 2. 3. And the final 4. Reaching out in that same path or trajectory. Getting a sense and familiarity with the cycle of inhalation and release. Resetting and release. Tracking along, but letting the paths move freely. Through a cycle of 4. You can begin to find this cycle on your own or follow my breath in and out. Experimenting with each inhalation, the length or intensity of the stroke. Keeping a light count, 3 for each one. Begin to choose the number that suits your cycle for a nice balance between the wobble and the heaviness that builds up as we work out into larger areas or into smaller movements. We might change that up. We'll just take a couple of minutes now, that 4 count, to keep adding at your own pace. 1, 2, 3, 4 through there. To this branch, we're starting a new branch. And exhaling its veins through the face of the paper. Big gestures forming around a single line. Layering at the large scale, the big gesture through sequence of marking and remarking with each cycle of inhalation and exhalation. We can work our way into the details, each branch or vein, a chance for something new to form, starting to play with how we draw it, getting more into that gesture, getting the body engaged as the pen or pencil may keep moving in motion, smooth, a little silky like the graphite, clean, precise like the ink, taking some inspiration from the instrument. The smaller the moves, the more we slow to the breath. The smaller the moves could change the counting, trying to keep it in a rhythm, awareness in the foreground of the mind, but there's no magic number, 3 or 4, 2 or 1. Setting one and letting it unfold. Give that layering and lamination to the paper. A reminder of movement of the breath as a guide to the movement of the body. The gesture marking out space to the paper quickly, a little bit of enthusiasm from the physical action, the repetition, remarking, re-noticing that play along its path, maybe shaping it a little to a new territory. We're building up some wobble, some extension out into space, the many moving together. Bringing a character of the moment to whatever you're working on through the drawing. Perhaps the veins become more like broad veins of grass, or light and wispy, almost invisible little feathers. And keeping the mind on that cycle of inhalation and exhalation at whatever speed feels good to you with the motion of the hand. The breaths don't need to be deep. It's okay if they're half breaths in between, just marking that movement. Becoming tuned to the hand, tuned to its motion in space. It has that consequence out on the page, the shaping of another trajectory. The guiding of a gesture, closing the space between things, opening perhaps a little of the imagination, or just the opening of the arm, hand, finger connection. The growing density or overlap of light gestures feeding into one another. The eye finding little paths guided by the little puffs of exhalation. A rhythm developing, cycles of repetition, and moments of search, repose. Some short, just moving out along a path. Longer ones, letting the eyes play over the paths, finding the new place to begin, letting the breath catch up. Letting the hand reposition to the next territory. Counting gesture through space. And taking a few minutes in silence to really focus on that count. Focus on its connection now to the breathing after the time engaged, getting used to the movement, letting them come together deeply in your attention. As the density may grow in the drawing, a bramble curves, filling up some space, keeping track of any one trajectory becomes more visually challenging, and that can become part of the exercise, letting the eyes see and sort information. Or, as a place becomes full, that's where we let it be for a time and move to a new location, somewhere that lets the eyes in, lets the hand find place, and just ride that breath out into space once the gesture begins. Just follows itself through the movement, unimpeded by the things before it. Unguided by the eye, emotion captured in the media, the graphite or the ink. And each new sprig, each new gesture through space, a chance to play again with the way you may be holding the pen or pencil, noticing how you position it for a new place. You can hold it differently, or maybe even switch hands if you feel like it. Some directions providing clean, long strokes. Other orientations, shorter, wobblier, or spread out varieties. A position in space, relative orientation to the paper, entering into the output, in part of how the page expresses that relationship between us, the tool, the instrument of marking, and the canvas. We built up a lot of layers here. The eye, we begin to see foreground and background. Things moving over, under, around, through each other. Letting the eye play over that as the hand makes a few more movements. Those two systems working together to sort, and then diverging as one plays out the gesture, the other looks along the new paths, oscillating apart with the breath, oscillating together with the guided stroke on the page. Layers and layers of oscillation, of local rhythms and repetitions, of a global movement. And with all that movement, as we come near the end, the final few minutes of the exercise, bringing a little attention to the arm that's been doing a lot of work. Noticing if you feel any tension, maybe holding, gripping in weird orientations, bringing some tightness or unusual places of engagement with the pen or pencil. If you're more painterly, gestural, might be engaging a lot more of the shoulder-arm connection, those broader movements. Letting the mind notice the novelty of experimentation, the exercise of repetition builds up sensation throughout the whole chain. And in your last few marks, in noticing those places of embodiment of the mark, the gesture, full flow of the system, take a few breaths into them, maybe slowing the last few strokes. Let that internal awareness intensify through the slowness, and let the tension dissipate through a light release of deeper breaths. The last few gestures of counting. And as you feel ready, bringing the tool, the movement to rest, setting it down and noticing perhaps the arm or hand wants to keep it going a little bit. Breathing into that space of calming, getting caught in the loop. Letting the whole arm and hand relax, just hovering there in space. Providing it with a little motion side to side or around as it slows eventually to stillness. Hovering a moment above the page. And bringing the hands together, giving them a little motion together just to work the wrists back into their symmetry, wiggle the fingers with each other. Take a nice, plenishing deep breath and exhale it into your space as you return out to the rest of your day. I think I'll leave the exercise there. It can be fun to take a step back, kind of close out for a little bit and ask, is there something more we could explore in the space that has now been put down to that paper? Perhaps you see some patterns between some shapes along, or opportunities to fill in a little bit more outside of the time of practice and attention to that cycle of breathing and the focus on the gesture. Now, in attention to the form, the figure, and the composition that takes place on the page. And if you do see something, I encourage you to continue drawing. If not, time to move on to the next exercise of the day and practice at life. If you enjoy the exercise, please give it a thumbs up. Share in the comments what you found by exploring your gestural motion, the layering of the movement on the paper, and subscribe for new episodes of Mindful Drawing each week. Have a wonderful rest of your day or evening, and draw well. Thank you.